Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you. I was also just going to say two things. One, some of the work that is for sale in the Artsy auction is at the center right now and is on the walls. The other thing is the Monokun. She does do nudes, but you do not have to be naked. If you're getting your portrait shot with her, you can be as clothed as you like. I just wanted to put that out there so everybody doesn't think that getting a Monokun portrait means you suddenly have to bear everything.
No, you don't have to be naked. You can wear a onesie if you want to.
You can wear whatever you like. She does portraits with people all the time. So that aside, we're super excited tonight. As Jason and Janice have said, the Artsy auction is open. This is our annual auction, and we have been given just such incredible, beautiful images this year. And three of the artists are here. Well, many of the artists are here tonight, I should say, in the audience, but three of the artists are going to be speaking about their work tonight. So I'm going to introduce them very, very briefly and let them talk to you about the piece and about their work and their life and a little bit about their process. So first up is going to be Wendy Schneider, who is a Denver-based artist who's widely known for her ongoing series of hand-gilded photographs. So Wendy, take it away.
All right.
For being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you, LACP, for all that you do to support photographers. I'm delighted to have been invited to speak with the amazing Josephine and Hiroshi, whose work I so deeply admire. I thought I'd tell you a bit about my history to explain how I approach my work and the gilded vellum print that I've donated for the auction. I grew up in the lush plush southern beauty of Memphis, and both my mother and grandmother painted in oils when I was a child. My mother was also a gifted designer and instilled the love of collecting old things. I doodled and painted my way through school and relished the fine photography in the magazines of the 60s and 70s and my mother's stash of art history catalogs. I studied painting and art history in college, and inspired by Klimt in the 70s, I tried rather unsuccessfully to integrate gold paint into my paintings of women. I later worked by day as a designer, an illustrator, and creative in marketing at the Times-Picayune newspaper in New Orleans. And it was while there in the early 80s that I bought a camera to reference my models for my paintings. I was spellbound with the magic of creating an image and bewitched by the play of light on film and fell in love with the alchemy of the darkroom. And I frequently preferred my missteps and often increased the grain in the darkroom and in camera to more closely resemble my earlier drawings. Photography quickly became my chosen art form, but I missed the scent and the sensuousness of paint. So I began layering them on my black and white silver gelatin prints, and then later on my sepia tone prints. I felt that photographs expressed my feelings in a more powerful yet subtle way than my paintings ever did, and even more so after I merged the two. I moved to New York in 1988 to open my photography business and added advertising and editorial to my fine art work, including book covers and many years of freelancing for the original Victorian magazine. I continued working in these areas when I moved to Denver in 1994, adding print and web design and art direction as we raised our son. By 2010, I was really feeling the pull to return to my fine art roots. And that year, on a return visit to New Orleans and to Gallery Fine Photography, which represented my early work, I saw Olivier and Vanessa's monumental work with gold leaf. I was really inspired to find a way to incorporate leafing into my photographic practice, recalling my failed attempts with gold paint in the 70s. In 2012, I attended a platinum and gold leaf workshop with Dan Burkholder in upstate New York. We only spent a little time on printing on vellum and leafing, but it was all I needed to get started. And I then began experimenting with different materials and applications. At that point, Dan was working primarily with 24 karat gold on platinum. His prints are incredibly beautiful. While my images were really quite different from Dan's, and the 24 karat complemented some of my work, I really wanted to make the work unique in my own. My emotional response to color is an integral component of my work, and I didn't want the work to be about the gold. I was also working with models in my early gilded days, so I moved into silver and white gold to enhance the skin tones. So the layering of the hand-painted work in the 80s and 90s laid the foundation for the States of Grace series that I began in 2012. And instead of layering oils, I layer the images digitally with color and texture to manipulate the boundaries between the real and the imagined. In States of Grace, I illuminate transformative moments of spiritual connection to nature, guided by the serenity that I find in the sinuous elegance of organic forms. I am transformed in capturing the stillness of the suspended movement of light and compelled to preserve the visual poetry of these moments of vanishing beauty in our vulnerable environment. I think many of us turn to nature for nurture. I think we have an innate desire or compulsion to commune with our surroundings, and at this time in particular, to appreciate what we have and bring awareness to what we're losing. The veneration of fleeting moments of beauty that began long ago is now intensified by the quickening pace of loss. I suppose my fascination with graceful forms in the natural world began as a child, seeking solace beneath the undulating limbs of a weeping willow tree in our backyard, and the love of whimsical whiplash lines of Art Nouveau. For as long as I can remember, I've found sanctuary in the focus of flow, those moments when everything disappears and I'm completely absorbed in the creative process. It's that magical moment when the senses align, when my eyes and essence are engaged and intertwined. I crave that concentration and connection that comes with looking intensely for the spirit of a subject and photograph intuitively from my heart to capture what I feel as much as what I see. I relish the focus to develop an image or a print that elicits a quickened heartbeat, and I'm soothed by a balanced composition. The process is calming and centering, exciting and enchanting. Lily Pads 2 was photographed in 2016 at dusk. I've always been drawn to that mesmerizing, melancholic time of day when the light is subdued and the air feels heavy with history and promise. So, informed by my background in painting and art history, my work is also influenced by my collection of turn of the 20th century photogravures, silver gelatin, platinum, and gum prints. While I rarely work with a particular picture or influences in mind, I've spent so much time with these images and prints over the years that they're undoubtedly buried deep in my psyche and affect my interpretations. I ascribe to the belief that everything we see and experience, consciously or otherwise, will emerge in some synthesized expression in our work in the future. I also wholeheartedly believe that everything we make is in some way self-portraiture. At any rate, the pictorialists are well represented in my collection. And in retrospect, the treatment of this image brings to mind The Pool by Edward Steichen, my favorite photographer, and also The Garden of Dreams by Joseph Kiley. And of course, who can look at lily pads without thinking of Monet? With this particular image, I moved to monotones to recall the fading light at end of day, reminiscent of the photogravures from Stieglitz's Camera Work magazine in my collection. I often alter the color and texture within the limited editions, honoring the variations. I think that harkens back to my time as a painter, but also to the desire to create something unique and go with the flow of the creative process. Informed by however I feel at the moment, and also often inspired by the music I listen to. I'm drawn to nuanced color and the luminosity the leafing infers, and continue to play with the metals to enhance the palette. I'm still experimenting and refining the process 9 years later. The image was printed digitally on a cellulose-based translucent vellum paper. I then applied thin sheets of white gold leaf behind the image on the verso, creating luminosity. The dab of light that glimmered on the surface of the water is delicately echoed in the glow that shifts as the viewer's position and ambient light transition. My process infuses the artist's hand and suffuses the treasured subjects with the implied spirituality and sanctity of the precious metals, reflecting the meditative moments of capture and creation and ensuring each print is a unique object of reverence. My work is testament and tribute, adoration, and obligation. With this intuitive process, I hope to elevate the ephemeral. My senses are enveloped and I'm immersed in a state of grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was terrific. That was beautiful. Really, it was wonderful. I hope you all will go take a look at her work on Artsy, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. We're so honored to have it. So next up, we have Hiroshi Watanabe, who was born in Japan but has lived in Los Angeles since 1975. He seeks to capture people, traditions, and locales that first and foremost are of personal interest. So thank you so much for being here, Hiroshi.
Hi, you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, okay, so thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak this moment. I usually do not speak in front of people too much. I am from Japan, and I've been doing it here for about 50 years, but still I'm having a problem, kind of a mental issue of speaking in English in front of people. So I'm gonna make it a little bit, or maybe much shorter. I actually practiced my speech and I timed it. It was only 3 minutes. So I don't think I'm gonna be speaking here for 10 minutes, but I will try to do as much as I can. And hopefully you can ask me questions which so that I can speak a little bit more meaningful way. Anyway, so again, thank you very much for having me. So I'm gonna show you the print. Can you hear me? See me? Okay. So this is the print I am going to donate to LACP's annual auction for this year. It is titled Lotus Dream #3, and it is a total, toned silver gelatin prints with the image size of 10 by 10, and it is matted and framed in an 18 by 18 white wooden frame. This image is an edition of 10, and this particular print is number 2 over 10. So I've been doing different kind of a series or project that with my photography, and mainly I was working with landscapes and portraits. But back in 2018, I tried to do something more experimental. So this is what I did. So again, back in 2018 on the internet, I stumbled upon a short video of a lotus leaf floating on the water. The leaf was casting a shadow in the water below, and I was fascinated by the mysterious shadow that was changing its shape constantly under the lotus leaf. After seeing the video, I started to imitate and experiment the same effect in a water tank myself. That effect I found out is called super hydrophobicity, was simply called Lotus Effect. There is a surface tension at the edge of the lotus leaf that touches and repels off the water. Due to that surface tension, water at the edge becomes round like a lens, and the lens bends the light, as you know. So that is how those intriguing shapes appear in the water, as I understand. I particularly like the organic and the seemingly human nature of the light and shadow show it creates. I added some small shapes in the water to make it even more human-like environment, like the small scuba diver doll that I put on the water. So that's how I get this image. So I did that in the back of my my backyard in the house. In case you're wondering, the camera is not in the water, so it's not the it's a regular. I use the Hasselblad to shoot this, and so camera is not in the water, but it's under the water tank, and the camera is looking up through the bottom of the water tank. So I call this project Lotus Stream. That's kind of a one-time project that I did. So I'm not sure if I will be doing a similar project, but well, this is what I have. So there's not much technical matters that needs to be explained. It's a straight photograph that was shot on film and printed on paper in the darkroom myself. There was no image manipulation. So that's pretty much I can say at this moment. Hopefully you have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hiroshi. That was lovely. And that was really, I've been intrigued by this picture for a long time. So it was great to actually hear your explanation of it. It's really beautiful. Next up, we have Josephine Zacabo, who divides her time between New Orleans and Mexico. Both places inform her work, resulting in imagery that is dreamlike, surreal, and romantic. And we're very happy to have you here tonight, Josephine.
Thank you. Thank you very much for asking me to be a part of this. It's really an honor. I just wish that I could see you all and that I could see Romi's photograph and Wendy's photograph. I can't see anything but a screen that says done speaking. So anyway, in terms of my, I don't have access to anything that I have written about my work and about what I'm doing and all of that because of the hurricane took everything that was on my computer. So I'm seriously improvising tonight. But one of the things that I know all the way to my very deepest center is that for me, art is the process, can be on good days, that is transcendence, one to begin with, like Wendy described, walking through certain wooded areas or whatever, wherever you find it. Art really opens the door to transcendence and to connection. And for me, if it doesn't do the second part, the part about connecting, then it leaves me in this sort of hermit
We seem
mode.
to have lost.
You've lost me? Hello?
We lost you for a second.
Am I back?
You're back, yes.
Okay. So it's really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to connect when it works, to connect with people that you don't know their lives, you don't know what they've been through, but they look at your photograph and they connect immediately to what you felt and saw, and you've made a bond. And I'm really someone who absolutely values a human connection. My dream is to have a big boarding house with people living in it, and we all meet in the evening and eat. And then during the day, everybody goes off and does their work. But a situation I've managed to establish both in San Miguel and New Orleans at different times, and it's quite wonderful. But basically, I feel like I have been given these incredible blessings in my life. And my feeling is that this is what I have made from those blessings. It's only what I've made from what I've been given. And I'm a very fortunate person, I feel. And so I want to say thank you in the most eloquent and beautiful way that I can. So that's part of what I do. The image, I think we're supposed to talk about the image. The image that we contributed, that I gave to the LACP, you know, I probably should have done something that's more soothing or more feeling. But when I did that series of photographs from which that is an image, I was furious, can I tell you? And it all came about because between my home in the French Quarter and my studio in the Marigny, which is the adjacent neighborhood, I realized one day that I had been thoroughly and completely insulted all the way down the line. All of this graffiti that against women, calling us like horrendous names. And I mean, I don't want to get banned from the internet, so I won't tell you what some of these things have said. And by the time I get to the studio, I'd be just distraught. And at the corner, there was an empty lot across from my studio. Someone had gotten rid of a couch. And every day or every week or whenever it was, the graffiti grew on that couch. And everything that was said on that couch was about women, was insulting, harming, hurting, just as bad as you could get. And I had to see that every day. Then I had to go into my studio, forget about all the insults I've received in the 14 blocks or whatever it is to my studio. And I found that I cannot. I'm really angry. And so I decided, you know what, you jerks, you're saying that this is what a woman is. You've told me very blatantly all the way from my house to my studio. I'm going to show you where you're lying. So what I did was I photographed all of that garbage that was said. And then I looked through some images and I shot some images and proposed my idea of what a woman is. And this graffiti has been slapped on her. And so I was trying, in a sense, it was an effort to reassert a positive and loving view of women. So that was, and the curious thing to me is that, and that's one of the reasons I love art, is that I would meet my assistant in the studio, Jennifer Shaw, a brilliant, absolutely brilliant photographer. And I'd yell at her, I'd say, Jen, can you believe, look what's on the couch today? And we'd go get into this whole thing. But instead, I decided, okay, that's what's going on. So what are you going to do about it? So I juxtaposed what I think a woman is to what they say a woman is. And that's basically the whole series, you know, that we have been tagged. We've been tagged as whores. We've been tagged as, you know, I don't want to go into the words just because it might make people turn off their phones, but even Trump used a couple of the words. And the image that you have there is this grotesque, cartoonish figure face of a woman superimposed on this beautiful woman just simply looking at the camera. And when I made that image, that's what I saw, these two faces. This is the face they say we have, and this is the face I say we have. And then I looked at the bottom left side of the print, and there was a little flyer of a profile of the president, of President Trump, with the word bigotry written underneath. And it's like, oh, okay, someone's already done this for me, you know, so it's out there somewhere. There's some hope that people are seeing this for what it is. So anyway, it was my response. I got slapped in the face, I feel, and I came back with this. And I'm very pleased. And the curious thing is, once I finished it, whenever I walk around, I don't even see the graffiti anymore. It's just like, I've dealt with that. You know, I've said my piece on that. I can move on to something else. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Specifically, it's a photogravure, which is what I do now. I do tintypes and I do photogravures, both because, I mean, I'm a total pictorialist on one level, except that the subject matter tends to be a little more hard edge than pictorialist subject matter. But nonetheless, the way of bringing out the beauty that a photogravure can do. I started looking at some of my favorite photographs for, like, for instance, Steichen, as Wendy mentioned, early Steichen in particular, unbeatable, and Colburn and all these people, because I'm represented by a gallery of fine photography. And every time I go down there to drop off a print or whatever, there I'm surrounded by some of the epitomes of beautiful photography. And I thought, you know, that's a way of communicating. Beauty is a very legitimate way of communicating even subjects that are not beautiful. And I've stuck with that. And I've decided that I can't see myself, so I'm probably looking like a maniac waving my hands everywhere, but that's that combination of you can make an honest, deeply felt response. And the fact that you make it beautiful gives you a really good chance of it connecting to someone and them saying. I did a show at Josh's at a gallery of fine photography a couple of years ago. And this woman, based on my mother, it was an elegy from my mother. And she died for 6 months. I was totally mute on the subject. And then I was able to finally express all the pain and beauty that had been my mother. And so I'm standing there talking to people like you do it and opening, a little nervous. And this woman walks up to me. She says, I had no idea you knew my mother. And I thought, well, I didn't know your mother. I knew mine. But because of this work, I also know what you went through and you know what I went through. And so it was just, yeah, it was such a nice moment. And I'm very grateful for that art can do that. And I started, I think I'm supposed to, someone stop me when I'm supposed to stop talking, please. But I think I'm supposed to tell you how I started doing photography and all that. And basically my husband and I had a theater troupe, an avant-garde theater troupe called Bird in Hand Theater. And we were performing in London most of the winter. And then in the summer, we would go to this little village in the south of France to recover. And we bought a house for $1,500 and we fixed it up, him and me. So, and we still have it. And now I lend it to artist friends who need some time out somewhere in France. So anyway, so we go there and my husband, who's a playwright, he goes right to the attic, sets up the studio and starts writing. And I, who was an actress, I'm just walking in circles thinking, what am I gonna do? And I found that a friend we had lent the house to left behind a Pentax, 35 millimeter. So I thought, well, maybe I ought to learn how to take pictures. I don't know. And in the village lived a man, totally eccentric English photographer, who had been, in fact, Cartier-Bresson's assistant. So I go over to him and I say, Chapman, show me how to take a picture. How do you work this kind of camera? So he was thrilled. He could be a mentor. So he showed me how to take pictures. And then he said, but you have to develop them yourself and you have to print them yourself. So we put a piece of wood over the bathtub and I bought a cheap secondhand enlarger. And Chapman showed me how to develop the film and put it in and make the contact sheets. And that was it. That was it. I saw the first contact sheet come up and I thought, this is what I want to do with my life. This is magic and it's available. So I basically did both acting and photography for a while. And then I eased out of the theater because I had a child and rehearsals and all of that. And photography felt more like it was something that very personal and that I could really hold on to. And so that's how I ended up a photographer. And I started out pretending to be a photojournalist, but the people in New Orleans said, oh, good, do this, do that. And it worked. And here I am 43, I think it is, years later in New Orleans, taking pictures and loving doing it. And I don't know how much you need to know or want to know about the technique, but it's basically, it's the first half of it has now become digital in the sense that I have to make these prints on film, on big transparent film. And then from the prints, we develop the plates. And then from the plates, we ink them and do the actual ending photogravure. So I'm like 21st century on the front end and totally 19th century on the other end. And it's a wonderful way to work. So I don't want to bore you all with a lot of details, but anyway, that's it. That's me, sort of. And I do want to add that when I first got here, I met a young woman who became my model, who was from El Salvador, and brought back to me my culture, because I am basically a Latin American. And so I was able to discover all of this world in Latin America and this poetry and stuff. And I've been working from that ever since. So anyway, thank you for listening to me. And I hope I don't sound like a, what do you call it, a Jabberwocky, whatever those things are. But anyway, thank you.
Not at all, Josephine. Thank you so much. That was terrific. That was wonderful. So I just want to open up the field to questions. If anybody has any questions for any of our three wonderful presenters tonight, who all have really interesting techniques and their photographs have really come alive. Don't be shy. Go ahead and put anything you would like to know in the chat. Anything about their lives, anything about their process.
What size shoe they wear.
What size shoe they wear, what they're drinking, you know. Yeah, anything that you all would like to know. We have these three wonderful artists standing by to answer any questions you have. Or any questions for us about the auction, about LACP, you know. I guess everybody's being a little bit shy right now. So, well, if we don't have any questions, I guess we will just thank everybody tonight for their wonderful images and encourage you all. I put the links. Oh, we do have a question. Hiroshi, so you're looking up at the objects that are suspended in a tank. Can you explain this a little more?
Okay, so the water tank is about 2 feet by 2 feet, and the depth is about 1.5. So it's a plexi cube water tank that I custom made at the shop, and then I pour water on top of it. But before that, I put on the two like a hose leg stand so that I can put my camera underneath, and I pour water, and then I put the lotus leaf, and then kind of mix the water and see what happens, and that's how I made the photograph. So one thing I should tell you is that if you look that way, actually the image is not like my photograph. Because there's no, you look at, because there's a different depth, and you can't really have like a one level focused the image. So I put a tracing paper at the bottom so that the shadow cast directly from the sun into the screen of a tracing paper, and that's how I made the photograph.
Does that answer?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody says I've had the pleasure of seeing Wendy's prints in person, which I also have had the pleasure of seeing them, and her fabulous house, which is full of incredible photographs. The computer does not do them justice. There is a luminosity with light that is extraordinary. I agree, they're just extraordinary. I've also had the pleasure of seeing Josephine's prints, and her photogravures are beautiful as well. And Hiroshi has actually, all three of them have donated before, so I've seen all of their prints. I am just going to put in the chat, if nobody has any other questions, that we'll be back here on Thursday night, and then again next Tuesday. And we on Thursday have Fran Foreman, Michael Kenna, and Sean Theodore all speaking about their work. Somebody said each person's technique and story is so different. I'd like to hear more about their learning and their jump from apprenticeship to fine art photography. Wow, that seems like a big question, but very quickly, should we get Wendy? Do you want to start?
Sure, I never really, my whole life is an apprenticeship. I mean, I feel like I never studied photography. I just started it, you know, as a tool and then fell in love. And then I just learned by doing. So I'm constantly experimenting. I will say I had no idea what I was doing when I moved to New York to open my photography business. I had only been doing hand painted work, and I had to learn how to shoot color slide film and, you know, do other work because it wasn't always what I needed. But I don't know, there was never, I started in fine art, then moved into editorial and advertising and design, and then back to fine art. So they're really, my whole life is an apprenticeship.
Sorry, you are mute.
Thanks, Wendy. Josephine, you sort of answered this question that you started with Cartier-Bresson's assistant, and he showed you how to use your camera and take beautiful photographs. And that was an amazing apprenticeship, I'm sure. Hiroshi, do you want to?
Yeah, well, I started photography. Well, I should say I studied photography when I was 18 years old after high school. Because I didn't know what to do, and my parents told me that I have to go to a university. So I thought maybe photography sounds like a fun thing to do. So I just told my parents that that's what I'm going to do. That's how I started. But so I wasn't serious, but I became serious after studying especially history of photography, and so. After I graduated from the university, I found a job in Los Angeles, and that's how I came. The job was to assist a photographer, but I also work at the production company that were making TV commercials for Japan. So that's how I started, and so I worked for them for 4 years, and then I decided to start my own production company. So with the friends, I made a small company, and then for 20 years, I produced TV commercials for Japan for many commercials. And then when I was about 40 years old, I decided to go back to photography. So I started taking pictures between jobs for several years, and then I built up my portfolio and I started showing my work through different galleries in Los Angeles and other places, and that's how I started.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, does that answer your question, Karma? I can't see you, so wait, I think you're not there, but I can't see your face, so I'm going to assume that answers. We're getting lots of wonderful comments in the chat. I know, Josephine, you can't read them, but the people are saying thank you for a wonderful presentation. Thank you all. Jason put the links to all of the websites for Wendy, Hiroshi, and Josephine. So if you want to check out more of their work and learn more about each of the artists tonight, please feel free to go to their websites. We, as I said, will be back here on Thursday night. Thank you. Mary Virginia Swanson says, thank you to the 3 brilliant artists sharing their work and stories with us tonight. I'm going to probably just end on that note. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you all to Wendy, Hiroshi, and Josephine. We really, really appreciate your donating your beautiful prints, and we appreciate your taking the time to speak tonight. So it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And everybody be well, and we'll hopefully see you back here in a couple of days. So take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you guys
Thank you.
very
Bye.
much.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
Wendy.
Thanks, so
Hiroshi.
good
Bye.
to see you, Josephine. Bye, everyone.